So, we've already had about four previous lessons. Yeah, well, everyone who's joining, well, welcome. I hope you stick around. So previously we had four lessons, and we are going to do a quick recap on them. So we would refresh our memories with how things were. In lesson one, we learned about our first consonants. The noon, the ba, the dal, and waw, which the sounds they make are respectively the n, the b, the d, and the wa. And we also discussed something about the short vowel system and the long vowel system in Arabic, and we realized that, or we learned that the vowels in Arabic are basically three pairs, and each pair is either a long or a short. We learned about the first pair, which is the fatha, which is basically just a small stroke we write on top of the letter, and it gives the consonant the ba, a quality sound. And we also learned about the long vowel alif, which adds more of an emphasis on the sound, so it becomes ba. Sorry. So this was the first pair of long vowels we've learned, the first pair of vowels we learned, and then we jumped over to the stress and how we stress which vowel in which part of the syllable, or which syllable is to be stressed. And then we learned something called sukun. Sukun is basically a small circle we write on top of a letter that denotes there is no vowel quality to it, so it's pronounced as a simple plain consonant, as b, b. There's no ba, there's no b, and there's no bu. And then we learned one of the most interesting phenomenons in phonology, which is voicing, which is basically your vocal cords vibrating, causing your voice box or larynx to vibrate, producing certain sounds. And we learned that learning this might actually start differentiating the sound quality of certain letters we're going to learn in the future. And lastly, and least importantly, are the punctuation marks in Arabic and how they are reversed in direction, as Arabic is a right to left language. So we write the question mark vice versa, as opposed to English, which is, from left to right. Then we jump to lesson two. Lesson two, we learned more consonants. We learned the sound the, or letter dal, and the t as in take, the f as in fat, and the y as in yell. And we also learned that the y here is one of the letters in Arabic that can be a consonant or can be a long vowel and represents the sound e, or it indicates the long vowel e. And the last vowel we learned in lesson two was the meme, or the m sound. And we learned our second pair of vowels, which is the dhamma, the u, and the waw representing the long vowel, which is oo, as in boon. And the short vowel represents the u in put. And we know that we write it as a small little waw on top of the letter. Lesson three. Lesson three was where's lesson three? Oh yes, I forgot. We learned something about something we called gemination or shadda. Tajdeed, basically a consonant is doubled. If there is basically if we have two consonants and one of them was sakin or has a sukun and comes after a consonant that has any sort of vowel, these or like dhamma or fatha or kasra, these two consonants will merge together and become ba with a shadda, and it takes the vowel of the second consonant, so it can be dhamma, kasra, or fatha, respectively. And basically, you double the sound of the consonant. So this is b. We say b, b, b. The consonant is more stressed. Lesson three. This is a quick recap in these 2 minutes before the actual class starts. So everyone is up to speed. Lesson three, we learned three consonants that are found in English, like relatively found in English. So we learned about the th, as in thin. We learned as the re, which is like the Spanish perro or the Italian caro, like deer. And the letter s, or the sound s, as in sad. And we had our first encounter with one of the tough sounds in Arabic, which is the letter sad. And we discussed a lot about how Sad is one of the velarized letters that can affect the quality of the Fatha when it comes after it. So it does not become A, it becomes O. Sad, so, O. So there's a vowel shift that happens. And we're going to discuss this vowel shift in another letter too today. The last pair of vowel was the kasra. Basically, it's a small strike or stroke we write under the letter, and it gives the sound E as B, and the ye also representing or indicating a long E sound. And we learned how to kind of catch them or like identify them if written in a word or not. So, lesson 4, we also took three consonant sounds that are found in English: the z as in zeal, the sh as in shake, the l as in leaf, and the second difficult sound of Arabic, which is the ta sound. It's a very emphasized t, ta. And we also discussed how it shares the same similarity or the same feature of Sad, where it velarizes or emphasizes the vowel after it. So tar instead of tar or tara, tara. And we learned about something called tanween, which is basically two of the same short vowels, kasra, and we basically add an imaginary noon at the end, so it can be un, in, and an. And we know that the noon is imaginary, only we pronounce it, we never write it, as we're going to see today in the examples, because the examples are going to have tanween in them. So let's start with with lesson number 5. So in lesson number 5 today, and again, I repeat for the newcomers, all this is going to be recorded. In case if you don't understand anything, you can ask or you can rewatch to hear or to listen to the pronunciation again. So today, lesson 5 in our roadmap, we're going to look at basically. Today is going to be a very heavy class because we're going to introduce to the Hamza, but before that, we're going to look at 4 consonants. One of them is a difficult sound, and the others are kind of relatively manageable. So the first one is the ka, or the K in kind. The second one that has no English equivalent is basically a lot of books would describe it as an emphasized ka, and it gives the sound of qa, qa, qa. And we'll get to it in details how it's produced and where the sound comes from, basically in your mouth or in your speech organs. And the third consonant is the jim as the j as the j in judge, j. Of course, this has like I'm gonna put a little small asterisk here because you might hear it differently amongst different native Arabic speakers. Like basically each dialect has a way of pronouncing it, but they're all considered correct in the grand scheme of things. The fourth consonant is the consonant or the sound kh. Kh is not found in English, but it's found in other languages like German, Dutch, and it basically just gives the ch or the kh sound in Nacht in German. The Hamza is one of those elusive letters that cause a lot of trouble. Like the more you're exposed to it, because it has a lot of weird rules that we're going to break down in this lesson and in the following one. But we're going to understand that it's a full-fledged consonant. It's a consonant that can be doubled. It can receive vowels, and of course it can be geminated. It can be doubled. But it has very weird ways of writing it in words, basically initially or in the middle or final. And finally, we're going to learn about a concept that I do not really find a lot of books talk about, which is Arabic has a special way of dealing with words when they are in the middle of speech or if they are at the end of your speech, as you're going to pause after saying this certain word. Once you say a word in Arabic, basically you do not pronounce the final vowel, but there are certain circumstances where you are forced to pronounce them to clear any ambiguity. So let's start with our first letter, which is the letter kaf. Of course, in Arabic, as we all know, letters have names, and this letter is called kaf. And if you trace it back into the ancient times, you would realize that the word kaf it means a palm of a hand. And that's why in Arabic the word kaf means palm. This is like, if you want to trace it back to the Phoenician alphabet, where basically most of the alphabets were derived from. So the Arabic kaf is like the English kind, key, and cook. Of course, cook is a C, but I'm talking about the phonetic quality. And as we've learned that with every letters, we know that the writing it, there's two paradigms. Either the letter is a connector or a non-connector. But kaf, as the majority of letters, is a connector letter that connects the following shapes in writing. As we see in the table here, if we zoom in, we find that kaf has an independent form. It can be joined by a previous letter, it can be joined by a following letter, and it can be joined on the both sides. Independent, it basically is a very simple letter to write. It resembles lam, but it's a more flat. It doesn't have a round belly like lam. Lam is written like this, but kaf is more flat, and you put a small hamza in the middle. It's not a hamza, but it's just a symbol. It looks like hamza. So, and if I'm going to pronounce this word, it's going to be yeah, because the ya has a fatha, so it's ya, ya. The dal has a dhamma, so it's ya'du, ya'du. And the kaf has a fatha, so it's yaduka, yaduka. Uh, okay. I have to really apologize, but I just have a very important phone call I have to take, so it's just 3 seconds. Mhm. Apologies, I'm back. So, we discussed that. We said that this letter is ya fatha, so it's ya. Dal dhamma, it's yadu, yadu, yadu. And the kaf is fatha, so it's yaduka, yaduka. And from now on, the convention will be like, if we find a vowel on the end of a word, we are going to pronounce it. If we don't, we assume it's a sukun. So the next scenario is when the letter kaf is joined by a previous letter. Basically, the writing is very simple. We write the same shape of the kaf, but it's attached to something, as in this is kaf, and we attach it to something in before. If we're going to pronounce this, so the meme has a fatha, so it's ma, ma. The lam, this is a lam in the middle, by the way, not an alif, because the alif never connects to what's after it. Only lam does, although they both look the same in the middle of the word. So, ma, li, and the kaf has tanween dhamma. Unfortunately, the font, I'm using, chooses this shape for dhamma, and it's an acceptable orthographical shape, but usually you want to write dhamma like this to kind of make it more clear for yourself, to know that this is a tanween. So how I'm going to pronounce this again? So it's li, malikun, malikun, malikun. And some of you would ask, okay, where'd the noon come from? The noon come from tanween. If I'm going to transliterate this to English, it's going to be ma, because there's a fatha on the meme, so ma, and there's a lam, so ma li, and there is the kaf with the dhamma, but there is the tanween, so I have to add a noon. But this noon, as I said, it's an imaginary noon. It's a noon that we never write, and it's a very common mistake with the children when they start writing to learning how to write in Arabic. They would write, instead of shukran, oops, shukran. As we've learned, tanween fatha always takes alif in the end, and we're going to be discussing this again. Instead of writing it this way, they would write it like this. Shukran, which is wrong, of course. Like this is a wrong way of writing it. So, jumping off to the third scenario of the letter kaf is when it's joined by the following letter. Oh my God. Uh, Joined by the following letter. So the following letter, basically, that means that it's either initial in a word or it comes after a non-connector. So basically, like after an alif, after a waw, after a dal, or a dal, or ra, or zay. How would I write it? It's basically like an inversed letter Z, basically. So it was basically would be like honestly, there's a lot of convention and a lot of special preference or personal preference on how to write it, but I find the easiest way to write it is basically lam and put a kaf and put a strike. Of course, you have to make it very obvious because it might look like a fatha if it's small, but you have to make it very prominent. So you can go like this, it's completely fine, but to me I find it easier to just like go like this and write after it. It's all up to you. So how would I pronounce this? This one is tricky because we're going to refresh our memories on long vowels. So if we look at the kaf, kaf has a fatha, so it's ka. But the re letter doesn't have the re letter doesn't have any vowel, but it's followed by a ya. So we assume that it's kareem, kareem. But there's tanween. How would I pronounce this? Kareemun, kareemu, kareemun, mun. Dhamma, tanween. So there's an un sound in the end. Kareemun. Now, if we go to the final scenario, which is joined on both sides, basically you retain the same shape from the initial or the following joined by the following letter scenario, which is basically like this. But while you're writing, let's say I'm going to write this word again. So I would do it like, and that's how I'd write kaf. You can also do this, but to me, this shape this shape is more of does not grow like does not go fluid or it doesn't flow pretty nicely when you're writing. So let's pronounce this word. So it's su. The sin has a dhamma, so it's su. Ooh, and then there's the kaf, but the kaf has the shadda on top with a fatha. So how would I pronounce this? So let's imagine there's no shadda here, so it's ka, ka. But if I want to double the kaf sound, so it's sukka, sukka, sukkarun, sukkarun, sukkarun. The ra has a dhamma, tanween, so it's sukka, sukkarun. Compare kareem to sukka, ka, when it comes to the quality or the nature of the kaf sound. Here it's doubled because of the shadda, so it's sukka, sukkarun. So far, as we said, there's a handwriting convention when it comes to the initial kaf. People, as I said, like to write it like this. Some people like to write it like this. In some really weird extreme cases, especially with if you're following a script, you might find the kaf being written like this, like. And this is also a valid convention, but I don't want to confuse you. But if you see it, be aware that this also kaf can be written this way. Okay, so now we go to our favorite activity, which is reading. Anyone feels like attempting row A? There's a lot of people here, so people can raise their hands. They have no excuse now. Wow. Okay. Before we jump to reading, are there any questions when it comes to the letter kaf? You can write in discussions, by the way. The room just right on top hall. There's a place where you can write questions or raise your hand. Oh, Aziz, okay. Aziz can our teacher Aziz can also participate. It'll make my job a lot easier. Well, yes, I can hear. Walaikum assalam. تفضل. It's row A and start from 1 to 5, please. مكث. مكث. شك. أها. سكران. كما. Perfect. Perfect. I mean, I would not expect anything less. So, thank you very much. Mhm. Yeah. Yes, it's discussions. It's the hall, the room above hall. There's discussions. You're most welcome. So anyone want to attempt row B? Like our brother Aziz here has done an excellent job. So Asma, okay, here we go. Okay, Asma, you're on stage. You might want to accept coming up on stage. أهلا أسماء، تفضلي. ركيكا. مهم. شكل ممتاز. سلوك ممتاز. ملاك. perfect. ممتاز 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 جدا. شكرا جزيلا أسماء. Anyone else wants to take Rosie? Uh, I see no hands. Rosie. Okay, I'll take Rosie then, and maybe someone will gather the courage for Rodi. So C here, if I look at row C number one, it's the meme has a fatha, and actually this was a mistake. I should not have put the fatha here because the alif blows it away, blows its cover away, because this fatha, this meme has an alif, so it's a long vowel sound. It's ma, and the lam has a kasra, so it's mali. The kaf has tanween dhamma, so it's malikun. Malikun. Malikun is an owner, basically. Uh, Okay, kaf has a fatha. This is it's an easy word. Kaf has a fatha. The re has a fatha. And the meme has tanween kasra. So it's kara, karamin, karamin, karamin. Remember that the noon is imaginary. We only pronounce it, we never write it. This one is the fa has a fatha. The kaf has a shadda and fatha. And the ra has a fatha. How would I pronounce it? فك فك ك فكر فكر فكر. He thought or he contemplated. This one is meme fatha, lam fatha, so it's ma'la, mala, and the kaf has tanween, malakun. Malakun kareem is like an angel basically. And the kaf has a fatha, the re has a shadda fatha, and the meme has a fatha, so it's karrama. Remember we said that the re, when it has a shadda, it becomes a trill. It becomes like your tongue has to basically do multiple flaps. So it's kar, re. It's like how you say the Spanish perro, per. It's a trill, not a roll. Karrama, karrama, karrama. He honored or he bestowed on someone. The row D, anyone feels confident? Dino Baby. Let's go. That's her name, by the way. I mean, Mariam, I understand that it could be confusing, but you can always ask, or even after the class, you can always ping me and tell me like, how do you pronounce this, or how is this written, how is this read, and I'll be more than glad to help. Uh, okay, so Dino, welcome on stage, and if you want to take row D, please. It's actually perfect, كتبة. كتاب. Mhm. مكتب, there's a سكون, yes. Mhm. مكتوبا, perfect. كاتب, perfect, very good, very good, very good. Thank you very much. I have basically exploited the root كتب to produce these words, as you've seen. Row E, anyone wants to take it? Yahya, yes. Okay. Yahya, I think you are a native, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So I would love for you to read, but I would prefer to give learners a more chance to practice, if you don't mind, of course. Yes, Asma, تفضلي. Asma, can you hear us? Number one, please. كان, كان, كنت, كنت, ممتاز. سكن, ممتاز. سكان, perfect, ممتاز جدا. شكرا جزيلا أسماء. تمام. I'm very happy that the pronunciation of kaf is kind of manageable. It's not that difficult. So if there are any questions about kaf, how C3 is pronounced. Okay, how C3 is pronounced. C3 here is fa has a fatha, the kaf has a shadda fatha, and the re has a fatha. So it's fakka, fakkara, fakkara, fakkara. If, for example, we remove the shadda and write it like, it would be fakara, fakara, fakara. But with the shadda, it's fakka, fakkara, fakkara. Okay. Now we're going to jump to the big one, the big boy, the letter qaf. Qaf is, as the other two letters we've learned, the sad and the ta, is also, we're going to start with, before I start explaining it, we start with the definition and take it a step, like a step by step, basically. So the letter qaf is a voiceless. So what is voiceless? Remember when we said that voicing means that when pronouncing certain sounds, your voice box, and your voice box is basically the bony part in the middle of your neck. You know, and in the gentleman, it's where your Adam's apple is, and in the ladies, it's not that prominent, but you can still feel the bony part. This is where your larynx is, or where your vocal cords are. Basically, in the image, they're usually, your voice box is here, where the vocal cords. Uh, when producing certain sounds, some sounds cause these vocal cords to vibrate, and some sounds do not. For example, if I try to say the sound z, put your fingers on your voice box and say z, you would realize that your vocal cords vibrate. Z, z, z. Your larynx or your voice box is vibrating. On contrast to the sound s, s. If you make the sound s, you don't feel such vibration. Actually, it doesn't vibrate at all. So this is what we mean by voicing. If a letter or a sound makes your voice box vibrate, it's a voiced letter or a voiced sound. If it does not, it's a voiceless sound. So in this description, so it's a voiceless uvular stop. So voiceless, we understand that it's not going to make your voice box vibrate. And if it does, that means you're pronouncing it wrong. Uvular stop. The uvula is basically this little fleshy tiny part you see at the back of your throat when you open your mouth in front of a mirror. There's a little tiny dangly thing, that's the uvula. And it's usually not in this location, it's a bit lower, but in this image it's a bit raised. But usually the uvula would be around like here. So what it means that uvular, so basically it gives us a clue that the sound comes from here, from this area. And what does it mean by stop? So we'll get to it in a bit. Uh, Produced by making contact between the back of the tongue and the uvula. So this definition gives us a quick clue on how to produce the sound. It involves using this part of your tongue. And we, as humans, have more control on controlling the tip of our tongue and the blade of our tongue more than the back of it. So the qaf is one of those letters that require training. It does not happen. If you can do it, then you've crossed you've made good progress. But if you don't, then you have to do some training in order to actually produce that sound, in order for your tongue and your uvula to practice or to train them to come in contact with each other. So the main concept of producing the sound is the back of your tongue has to touch the uvula to produce that q, q, q sound. It's basically more of like a gargling noise when you do. You know, when you gargle water, basically the gargling water, what you're doing is basically moving the back of your tongue to your uvula to prevent water from falling down your throat while you're blowing air outside. So basically, your tongue is acting like a valve to not allow water to come in, and you make the sound. So that's basically the gargling sound. It follows the same concept, and I'll give you a tip later on how to try to train your tongue to produce it. But let's just go over and view the letter itself, so we'd have basically a good definition or a good conception of it. So some consider qaf to be an emphasized k, but I disagree with this because if you try to say the sound k, you would realize the sound comes from around here, not around here. So there is certain qualities, like it's easy to produce qaf from ka, but they're not like an emphasized form of one another. They're different sounds, but they're very similar. That helps you to produce the kaf helps you to produce the qaf. But the main differences between the kaf and the qaf is aspiration. And by aspiration, we mean that if you put your hand in front of your mouth and say k, k, car, car, you would realize there's a puff of air that comes out. And this is what we call aspiration. Uh, with kaf, you would find it, but with qaf, you do not produce that puff of air. Q, q, there's no air coming off. That's why we call it a stop. It basically stops air from being ejected. It is not a plosive. It's not like there's no explosion of air like with the letter p or the letter t. Those are plosives, or they're not stops basically. But the qaf is a stop. It blocks air from coming out. So so far, this is basically the phonetic definition on qaf. Is there any issues with the definitions? Is there some words you don't understand so I can go through again? We'd hear the letter a lot more in the next slide, but before we jump to the next section. Okay, so we're going to recap just for people who did not catch it. So we said it's a voiceless. That means that your voice box will not produce any noise or any vibration when pronouncing it. It's uvular or uvular. It's basically coming from this area here, and it's a stop. That means that no air comes out when you pronounce that sound. There's no ejection of air outside of your mouth. And how we produce it, we make contact between the back of the tongue to the uvula. We bring it back to almost contacting, and then it stops the air in that direction, giving you the sound q, q, q. Now, given that it comes from the back part of our mouth, it shares the same feature with the sod and the ta, as in it's something we call velarized. What is the meaning of velarized? If we look here, if we zoom into this image, we realize that this word is called the palatine velum. Basically, palatine is from the palate, and the velum is basically something that is fleshy or soft. So, any sounds that usually come from the velum. We call them velarized sounds. And they have this habit of pushing the vowels back in pronunciation. So the is, if you can hear the pronunciation of the vowel it's more frontal, it's more in the front of your mouth. But because the letter qaf is in the back, you cannot just shift alif from the front to back. So you cannot just like basically sorry, you cannot shift your organs of speech from pronouncing something that is very backed into something that is very frontal in the same syllable. So what happens is that the qaf and the sad and the tad would actually pull the alif or the sound that comes from here to be produced from back here. And this is what we call velarization, the emphasis of a vowel. The vowel shifts to a more emphasized quality. And we will see how that works or how that sounds in this table when we compare kaf and qaf. Cad, this is the kaf, which is not velarized, as by the way. Kaf is not velarized, is pronounced with the vowel of cad in English. While qad, like please listen carefully to how I'm pronouncing it. Qad is pronounced with the vowel of cod. You know the fish, the cod? If you say it, you realize there's a k, k quality to it. It's not like ka, 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 qad, qa, qad, qad, oh. This is what we call velarization of the vowel. So, how would we perceive this difference? We've learned the first example, cad or kada, qada. Even in the word qada itself, you can hear the both or two variations of the vowel. Qada, qada, o and a. Qada, qada, qada. Kaf, qaf, kaf, qaf. Kas, qas. Like I would pronounce as keys and qis, but that kind of proves problematic because the kasra, if I would put kasra here and kasra here, the kasra is already a backed vowel, so it does not show the change. But if I put fatha, because it's the most prominent, kayasa, qayasa. So kayasa, qayasa, 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 kayasa, qayasa, qayasa, qayasa. This one, yakburu, yakburu, yaqburu, yaqburu, yaqbu, yaqburu, yaqburu, yakburu. Of course, the vowel shift with dhamma and kasra is less noticeable than fatha. Fatha is a special case because it's frontal, while the dhamma and kasra, especially kasra, is more of a backed vowel here. So it does not show that significant shift or velarization. So far, one tip I would give for training your throat to produce the qaf or the q sound. Basically, you would get the word like caught, caught. Because if you see when I say, well, if you listen carefully to when I say the word caught, you would say that the o, the a, the au, what we call them diphthongs, the au is basically velarized. Caught, 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 caught. I'm probably emphasizing the pronunciation more than it should, but it's just for the sake of clarity. Caught and cod, called, 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 and the velarization because the L, the English L becomes velarized in certain words. So the A borrows that velarization, but this is another different topic. Anyways, using the deepest part of your tongue. Of course, now people will tell me like I cannot control the deepest part of my tongue, but I can give you a tip. If you lie down, your tongue by the imagine if I can do this. Oh no, I think I cannot change the BTF. But if we imagine that I'm lying down and my back of the back of the tongue basically is inverted, you know? So the gravity would pull my tongue, to the ground. Pulls it like downwards, which kind of helps approximate or bring the back of the of the tongue to the uvula. While you're lying down, like on your back, of course, try to pronounce these three words and try to kind of push your tongue backwards. That's like the first step of into trying to train your tongue into producing cough. With time, with practice, you're going to get there. Uh, uh, so far, any questions about the cough before we jump to practicing the reading of cough? You can either raise your hands to ask it, or you can write it in discussions. Okay. As I always say, no questions. It's either a good sign or a really, really bad sign. Uh, okay, so let's jump to is the part where the velarization of vowel understood as how qaf and sad and la and ta give that velarized quality of fatha? Okay. In Arabic, we say sukutu alamatul rida. So silence is a sign of acceptance. Okay, so again, we're going to see how the letter qaf is written. Of course, it's a connector. It means that it follows the paradigm we're at this point we're used to. So it can be independent, it can be joined by a previous, a following, or both sides. So the first one is the qaf basically is written with it don't there's a mistake. I see a lot of new learners or people who try to practice Arabic would write qaf as like this, as like fa, which is wrong. Fa has a more flat belly. Fa has a flat belly while qaf is more rounded. Uh, of course, if you're still practicing, I would not uh, punish you for it, but it's good to keep in mind because later on this might make your handwriting unintelligible. Um, so let's start with reading the first one with the independent form as it is. So the sheen has a fatha, the re is sukun, and let's say it's a final word in speech, so it has a sukun. How would I pronounce this? Sharq, 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 east, sharq. The qaf, when it comes joined by a previous letter, is basically the same shape, but I just connected. So how would I pronounce this? Sa. The sa has a fatha, so we notice how the sa is velarized. Sa is emphasized, it's heavier, it's like o. Sa. And the dal has no vowel, okay? But there's a ya. So there's a ya, that means that the dal has a long vowel kasra. صديق, صديق. And the qaf has noon, tanween dhamma. So صديق, 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 friend. Uh, the qaf, when connected to the following letter, as in it's either word of initial or after an unconnector, it's basically just the belly is gone. And of course, because my pen is a bit thick, so it's usually you can show like the head of the qaf. So this is qaf. We know why it is because the qaf has no vowel, but there's an alif, so it's a long vowel a. Qaf, which is the name of the letter. Okay, joined on both sides. Of course, the qaf would still keep the head, but it gets joined from before and after, and of course two dots as opposite to fa, which has a one dot. So if I want to produce this sound, or this letter, it's meme has a dhamma, so it's mu. Qaf has a sukun, so no vowel, so it's muq, muq, muq. The dal has a kasra, muqdi, muqdi. And the meme has tanween dhamma, so it's muqdimun, 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 muqdimun. Someone who's brave or fearless, basically. Uh, yes, this is the note we said before that the final forms and the independent forms of letter qaf are more rounded than the letter fa. It has a more billy, it's a rounded billy. Now, when it comes to handwriting convention, qaf sometimes, especially when the final form, as this form basically, some authors or some people who write Arabic kind of in a cursive way would not write it this way, would just write it like this. And this little tiny downstroke would actually resemble the two letters, the two dots. But this is very common with specific Arabic scripts, uh, and almost all handwritten, all printed forms of Arabic usually use the dotting method. They never use any unusual kind of gimmicks. So reading, it's going to be short. It's going to be two rows, A and B. Anyone wants to take them? Anyone feels like reading row A? It might be it might be a bit intimidating, but I mean I'll give you a hand. Maya, okay. Let's do it. Let's see. أهلا مايا. تفضلي. Mm-hmm. Uh, again, please, but louder. فندق. فندق. فاء ضمة، نون سكون، دال ضمة، and قاف تنوين كسرة. So فندق. 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 Number two, please. قادر. Perfect. This one is a bit tricky because it has two qafs. دقيقا. دقيقا. And number four. I didn't hear you. قصري. ممتاز. This one, which is the plural of قصر. قصور. ممتاز ممتاز ممتاز. Thank you very much, Maya. Anyone wants to attempt Roby? It's easy. It has قاف شدة. So no one, it seems. Okay, I'll take it. So B1, we would start with B1. Here we would say سلق. 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 He boiled, basically. He boiled something. Uh, this one is kind of, oh, قاف with shadda, how I'm going to pronounce this. It's simple. Sheen with an alif and قاف with a shadda alif. شق. 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 It's the ق element of the qaf is stressed, is harder. شق. And you can tell that the word sounds very harsh. شق. Because the meaning of it is harsh. The meaning of shaqqa is to cut open, as to basically cut open someone's chest for a surgery. We say shaqqa. So it is a very harsh action, and it deserves a harsh sound. So this one is taq, taq, taq. The re here has no vowel, but I know there's a ya, so it's a long vowel ye. It's a long vowel kasra. Sorry. So it's taqreer, taqreer. But there is tanween fatha, and as we said before, tanween fatha always takes an alif after it. Of course, this alif is just an orthographic convention. It's just writing. It is not pronounced. You don't put anything on it, and it's just there to announce there is tanween fatha. Because some people would ask now, why? Why is there an alif if there's a haraka? But you have to remember that some few hundred years ago, Arabic did not have any harakat. It did not have any dots. So they had to actually tell people that this is tanween fatha by putting an alif. And you'd still find a lot of weird Arabic writing conventions or weird rules because of this reason. Because of Arabic did not have any dots, and we had to put things in different locations, although it might not be logical, but we have to do it this way, or may have not an apparent reason. But the only reason was to differentiate letters from sounds, from tanween, from being muthanna or being something. Okay. So the next one is mim fatha, and the s has no vowel, but there's an alif, so it's masa, masa. The qaf has tanween dhamma, so it's masaqun, masaqun, masaqun. This one is a name, and qaf fatha, qa, and the ya is not a vowel. Why? Because first of all, there is no kasra, and there is a sukoon on the ya. So how would I pronounce it? I pronounce it as a consonant, as a normal sound, which is ye, qay, 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 and the sin has dhamma, and I would pronounce it as qaysu, qaysu. And if you find time, you can Google and read about Qaysu Layla, Qaysu Layla, and he is basically the Romeo and Juliet of uh, old Arabia. A man loved loved Layla so much he actually lost his mind. Anyways, let's jump to okay. Before we jump to letter Jim, is there any questions about letter Qaf? You can raise your hand if you want to ask it in voice, or you can type it in the discussions. If you want me to repeat a certain pronunciation, if you want me to re-clarify something, to go over something about letter Qaf. Okay, then I'll take that as no answers, no questions. Letter Jim. Letter Jim is also a very easy letter. Uh, Letter Jim is one of the peculiar cases of Arabic of an Arabic letter, because MSA has a way of pronouncing it. Egyptians have a way of pronouncing it. Levantine people or people in like Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Palestine have a way of pronouncing it. The area in the Peninsular Arabia have a way of pronouncing it. In Yemen, it's different. So it's the letter is very variable. But fortunately, all these variations that you were going to hear in your long journey of learning Arabic are available and present in English. So it's not going to be a very weird pronunciation that you cannot reproduce. So if we look at the letter Jim, represents a very peculiar case because of the variety of pronunciation over the Arabic speaking world. Fortunately, all the different sounds are present in English, and so the letter won't be that difficult to pick up and practice. Now, let's look at the variations, because I know this is not MSA, but it's very common you're going to hear these. So you won't get questions and assume they're pronouncing it wrong. No, 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 no. They're correct. So in Cairo and Alexandria, it's pronounced like gold and g, like it pronounced like g, g, or maga, or like it's did he come or did not go? Uh, in North Africa and the Levant, it sounds very much like the j in pleasure, and that's how I actually pronounce it in my own dialect. I don't say wajah, I say wij, wij, as face. In MSA, it's wajah, wajah, but in my dialect, I say wij, wijjo. Uh, I don't know about like the local regional varieties, Terra Kitty, but yeah, as far as I know, that the Yemenis pronounce it as ga. These classes, to kind of not confuse ourselves, we're going to stick to the MSA convention, pronouncing it as j, j, as ja'a, as in jam. Of course, as we remember, also the letter Jim is a connector. This is a convention, but at this point, this is like we got used to it, and takes the following shape. Uh, the independent, which is basically a hat and a belly and a dot in the middle. So And the connector or the join to the previous letter is basically, okay, this is going to be a bit difficult. The handwriting kind of does it in a weird way, where just like it goes like, and then, no, you can just go like this. Completely just connected to the hat. It's completely fine. Uh, and the joined by a following letter, basically the whole Billy is gone and just the hat is left. So you go like this, or you can go like this. You can do it anyway, but as long as you retain the angle, it's completely fine. The join on both sides, of course, the hat just gets joined on the other end. It's very simple. Let's read the words. So the independent form, or the gene, is just like floating alone. And this word, we would try to pronounce it, and we would find there's no vowel on the ta, but there's an alif, and there's a sukun here because it's a final word. I would say taj, 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 just crown. Joined by the previous letter, and the noon has nothing, but it's followed by an alif, so it's na, and the te here has a kasra, so it's nati, natid, na, and the jim natiju, 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 the resultant of something. Uh, Joined by a following letter as word initial or after a non-connector. Uh, Jim has a fatha, the meme has nothing but followed by a ya, so it's a long vowel kasra, so it's e. And the lam has a kasra, so it's jamili, jamili, jamili. Joined on both sides, the noon has a fatha, the jim has nothing but followed by a ya, so it's a long vowel e. And the be has sukun, so it's najib, najib, najib. It's a very common Arab name, and it means someone who's bright, like someone who's bright in intellect, like intellectual capabilities, not bright as in luminosity. Uh, so row A. I don't think the letter Jim has any issues. We can easily. Anyone wants to take row A? I see no hands risen. Okay. Okay. Aziz, our teacher Aziz, please. وعليكم السلام. row A من فضلك. Tijano, perfect. Mm-hmm. There's no tanween, so it's Jumalu. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Perfect. Better than I would do it. Thank you very much. So, like, our brother Aziz is like raising this standard, so don't feel intimidated. So, anyone wants to kind of give it a try? It has shadda, our favorite thing. Okay, Asma, let's go. Yes, Asma, تفضلي. Number one. Can you say it again, please? Perfect. There's no need to valorize the ra. It's rajin. It's not rajin. It's rajin. Uh-huh. Okay. Careful. جدد. Perfect. ممتاز. تجديد. ممتاز. This one is جدا. Perfect. Thank you very much, Asma. So, of course, this is one word that you're going to use a lot, which is جدا, which means very, like جدا as very something. Uh, it's okay. It's okay. Ustad Aziz, it's okay. It's completely fine. It's a still valid. It's a valid word. Um, okay. So, any questions about the letter Jim? I think there is none. Okay. Okay. So now, we're going to discuss the letter Kha. Kha. Um, a lot of like if you're a native English speaker that like and you only speak English, that letter might prove a problem to you. Uh, but if you speak other languages, the letter might be very easy to produce. Like I know for sure, like Urdu has it, Dutch, German have the kha, Persian also. So it's not a very difficult sound to make. But if we're going to talk about it, also to clarify how the sound is made, because some people may actually have difficulty producing it. So the letter kha is not found in English, but present in other languages like Dutch, German, the kha in German Nacht, or night. So, okay, now again with the phonetic jargon, but we're going to break it down a little bit. So it's a voiceless velar fricative. We know what voiceless is. Your voice box does not vibrate when it comes to saying voiceless. Velar is, we know this word before, it comes from here. So the velum, so the sound comes from here. Okay, now what does fricative mean? The word fricative comes from the word friction. So there has to be some sort of friction going on to produce the kh. And you can even feel it in your in that area when when you make the sound kh, you can feel like there is something is like, rubbing. Something is kind of like causing friction in that area. And to prove it, keep saying kh, and by like the second minute your throat will start hurting. Uh Now, how do we produce the sound? It's very simple. We produce the sound by narrowing the passageway between the back of the tongue and the velum, thus creating friction as the air passes through. So, the vocal cords are addressed because it's a voiceless sound. Voice cords have nothing to do with producing the sound. But this one actually caught my interest because what does it like? Why do we have to create friction? Because if we don't create friction and block the whole passage, technically we're creating qaf. But if we allow a little bit of friction, uh, wait, Luna, I'm going to finish this. Oh, okay. I'm sorry if I missed the raised hand, but I'm going to finish the kha, this part, and just jump back to your question. So we were saying that we were going to produce the letter kha by narrowing the passageway between the back of the tongue and the velum. So the tongue would come to this area here, but not block it. So the air comes up from here, causes a little bit of friction down here, and produces the sound kh. Uh, the letter kha differs from ka, and the letters completely stops the airstream in its passage from the lung to the mouth, then releases it, an air explosion. Ka, 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 ka. Remember when he said the ka is basically a plosive, or it's what you call it, an aspirated letter? It's like when you put your hand in front of your mouth when you say ka, you find the air. Kha, 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 kha doesn't have that quality. Uh, Kha almost blocks it off, but not quite completely, giving it its fricative effect. It's not it's not an explosion of air. You can find like a very gentle stream of air coming out when you say kha, because the majority of that air is used to cause that friction between your tongue, the back of your tongue, and the velum. Anyways, uh, practice by saying a ka. That is, make the complete closure for ka, then relax the tongue enough to let air through. The sound kha should result. Akha, akha. Like say uk and hold it. And then try to release that air, that held air, slowly. Ak, ak. You would result with kha. Try it. Actually, I kind of give you time to try it yourself. I know that it might look very weird to people who are watching, but I mean, that's how you practice sounds. So Luna, why is jiddan written as jiddan in the table? Okay, how is jiddan? Oh yes, I am sorry. Because of my this font doesn't allow. It's very iffy when it comes to tanween with shadda. It basically writes it this way, so it doesn't appear. So actually, I had a mental note to add a tanween by hand, but I forgot. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, this is how you actually supposed to write jiddan. The tanween can also come on the shadda. Jiddan. I hope that clears the confusion, Luna. It's not like it's a limitation of the font I'm using or limitation the Mac system uses. It's just when you put shadda with tanween, it messes it up. So we'll go back to kha. I use a Mac and I use the Apple software which comes called Keynote. The thing is, like, I like this letter because I like this font because it's very plain. It has no weird computer font. Is just the usual Mac one. I think it's called something. I really forgot which is it the default Mac OS. Uh, but yeah, if then I will probably switch to another like Arial or another more clear font when it comes to harakat. Anyways, so kha, is anything unclear about kha, especially this part? Basically, here by saying ak, ak, and hold it. Ak, 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 ak. It's like basically you're trying to sneeze. Try to sneeze and like ak, this sound naturally will happen. So let's just contrast kaf and kha. So kala, khala, kadda, khaddu, khaddu, kaf, khafa. Khafa is he was scared or he's scared. He was afraid. Uh, bakkara, bakkara, bakhara. The kha has a shadda. Bakhara, bakhara. Shaka, shakha. Nakkara, nakhala. The we're going over shaka and shakha. Why did we not put fatha? Because there's an alif and the sha is a long vowel sound, so it's shaka, shakha. Same thing with kafa or kaf, kaf, khafa. Anyways, any issues with the letter kha? I know that we are getting close to 1 hour in this class, but we still have one more little thing to talk about, which is the hamza. And Hamza could be not very difficult now. Like this part of the Hamza is not difficult, but the next lesson or tomorrow, inshallah, we're going to dedicate a lot of time to explaining Hamza because Hamza is elusive, and that's why everyone hates it, and that's why we don't consider it a letter in the alphabet. We just say it's just a wannabe letter. So we go back to the writing and reading of the letter Kha, assuming there are no questions, of course. So the letter Kha, as we look at it, by looking at it, it really looks like the letter Jim, but instead of the dot in the belly, it has a dot on top, and one dot above the rather than one dot in its belly. In writing, it's a connector letter. The same paradigm follows. Independent, joined by previous, joined by following, joined on both sides. So independent. So how would I pronounce this? Mim fatha. Noon has nothing, but there's an alif, so it's manakhun, manakhun. Remember tanween dhamma. Honestly, I'm gonna put it like this so everyone sees it. Manakhun. The joined by the previous letter, the same story with the kha. You can like this font is kind of doing it in a weird way, which can be a bit like unnecessarily finicky for learners. You can just go like completely fine. Of course, you have to kind of connect it a little bit. So it's completely acceptable. Or you can just attach the the line to the hat of the kha. Completely fine. So how would I pronounce this? It's ta with nothing, but there's an alif, so it's ta. Re with nothing, but it has a ya after it, so it's tari, tari. And the kha has tanween kasra is tarikhin, tarikhin. Tarikh in general means history, as also can mean date, as like today's date. Um, the kha in the initial position or after the non-connector is basically just the hat with a dot on top. And the one after, oops, now this is sloppy of me. That's what copy pasting does to you. It's basically just the same, but you attach something. You attach whatever before it to the hat itself. Let's read those. So kha has nothing, but it has fatha. It has a long. It has an alif after it, so it's a long ah sound. So and the meme has kasra, so it's khami, khami, and the sin has dhamma, so it's khamisu, khamisu. The last one here is the b has a kasra, so it's b. The kha has fatha, so it's kha, kha, bi, kha. And the ye here has a sukoon, so it's not a long vowel. It does not indicate any long vowel. Why? Because the letter before it has a fatha, doesn't have a kasra. So we treat the ya as a consonant and the ye sound. And the re has tanween kasra. So how would I pronounce this? Bikha, bikhairin, bikhairin, bikhairin. And it's useful to learn this word now, at this point, at this stage, because this is the answer to how are you in Arabic. You say bikhair or bikhairin, as it literally translates to in wellness of living, kind of sort of thing. So, anyone wants to read the letter kha? Anyone wants to go to give it a shot? Yes, Luna. تفضلي يا لونا. وعليكم السلام. تفضلي يا لونا. Row A, please. مناخا. Perfect. ممتاز. ممتاز. صراخ. ممتاز. وسخ. ممتاز. ممتاز. Very good. Perfect. Thank you very much, Luna. Anyone wants to take row B? Mm, It doesn't look like it, so I'll take it. So, the kha. Oh, okay, Asma. Okay, Asma, please, if you may, row B. We can't hear you very, very well. خالة. ممتاز. There's تنوين فتحة. ساخرا, yes. خادم, ممتاز. شرخ, ممتاز. ملخ, ممتاز. Of course, we did not take the letter ha yet, so I did not use the most common word, which is ملح or milh. Maybe later on, we would, when we take the letter, we would get to it. Thank you very much, Asma. Anyone want to take row C? Maya, yes, and Blackout. So Maya, you taking C, and Blackout, you're taking row D. Mm-hmm. C1, please. ممتاز. رخيم, ممتاز. لطخ. لطخ, ممتاز. خام, and last one. زاخر, ممتاز. Very good. Thank you, Maya. Blackout. تفضل. Or please. وعليكم السلام. بدخن, but I think I made a mistake here, so let's put a dot. بدخن, ممتاز. رسخ, ممتاز. خدم. Mhm. دخيل, ممتاز, because there's a long E. بخيل, ممتاز. Thank you very much, Blackout. طيب. Are there any questions about the letter Kha before we jump to Hamza? You can type them in discussion, or you can. Okay, so let's jump to Hamza. So Hamza is basically, you remember when. Yes, well, Hamza is going to be a very big part of tomorrow's lesson. Tomorrow's lesson, probably there are 3 slides dedicated to Hamza. Um, now, we're going to deal with Hamza in a very the easiest way possible, which is like the Hamza being initial or the first thing in a word. And you would find that it's not easy, it's not hard to pronounce, sorry, but the reading and writing it is what makes it a bit confusing, even for native learners. Like until this day, I sometimes have to go back and refer to the rules. Like that's a native speaker who's read and spoke Arabic like almost all my life. I still have to go and refer back to the rules because it's you can easily forget them. You can just start doubting yourself when you're writing a word. It's like, oh, should I write it this way or that way? And I find myself googling the rules. So it's very normal to be overwhelmed with it. Like everyone is. Don't worry. So Hamza, the Hamza is basically a small sign that you'd find on top of Alif usually, or on top of different letters. But we'll get to that next tomorrow, inshallah. And I usually, if you find me writing in the server or trying to transliterate an Arabic, you'd find me using this symbol. This symbol to me represents the Hamza. And this is usually the glottal stop symbol in the IPA, the phonetic language. In the and it's called the glottal stop. What is a glottal stop? Remember when we said that the qaf is an alveolar stop? Like let's go back to qaf. Sorry, I'm switching. So remember when we said it's qaf? That it's basically just you block the air by touching the back of your tongue to the uvula. ق ق ق ق hook hook hook. Now, and we call this a stop and uvular because it happens here. So Now, if you go back to the Hamza, we notice that it's called a glottal stop. So it happens here. And basically, you stop the air at this location. It sounds very difficult, but it's very easy. And you'd realize that you are using it every time you speak English without noticing it. So it's a consonant heard in English. It's not represented in spelling. When do we hear it? We'll get to that. How do we produce Hamza? We produce it by blocking off the airstream at the top of the voice box, basically in your larynx. Yes, Maya, we're going to get that. 1 second. Produced by blocking off the airstream at the top of the voice box and then releasing it. A common description is a catch in the throat. Okay, like right now, if you all sit down and say the word uh-oh, uh, something is caught in your throat. It's like uh-oh, uh, uh. And in English, you can say like all probably every word that starts with a vowel in English, it starts with a glottal stop, an ah, apple, 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 uh, uh, apple. And the thing is, sorry, I was drinking water. Uh, like it's basically what we mean by a catch in the throat. It's like you feel like your throat or your voice box, not voice box, actually your vocal cords open or close quickly, blocking all the airstream. So it's like uh, uh, oh, apple, alif, alif. So in English, it's a consonant, but it's not recognized as a consonant as you don't write it. But in Arabic, it is a consonant. It's a full-fledged consonant that can receive nunation, tanween. It can receive shadda, as we're going to see now. Maybe the shadda will be the next lesson, not now. But English words beginning with vowels are often pronounced with a glottal stop, but we're conditioned to it and do not hear it. As we said, apple, apple. Now, I want you to listen and see how my throat kind of like blocks the air very quickly and then releases it. We're going to start from right to left because Arabic usually. So, ana, ana. Notice that the hamza here is on an alif, and this is a good time to answer your question, Maya. Now, in Arabic, the letter alif is basically written like this. It's just a single stroke, and hamza usually prefers to be seated. What do we mean by seated? Is that Hamza can occur on the line, can occur on its own. It's completely like it's you can find it in the script. But usually in the beginning of words, it prefers to be on alif. Uh, and sometimes in the middle of words, it can prefer other seats, but I don't want to overwhelm you. Next lecture, inshallah, tomorrow, we will learn about the different seats of Hamza and how to write them and how to recognize them. So now the thing is, the alif on its own, you might find it in other words, like or in other structures, like what we call al-ta'rif, or the definite article al. Let's say kitab and al-kitab, right? So if you look in some books, or especially in Quran, you'd find like this alif here might have a small sign like sad, and this is to resemble something called wasl or wasla. What does wasla mean? That although this alif does not have a hamza, you pronounce it if you're starting your speech with it. I say, like, notice how I'm saying this. Al-kitab. Ah, al-kitab. But imagine if I put just one little tiny letter before it and say wa and the book. How I pronounce it. Wal-kitab. Wal-kitab. The sound is gone. Now, why is this? Because usually the lam in al-ta'rif is sakin, and we cannot start with a syllable that has no vowel. You're not gonna have the air to produce that sound. So you have to kind of give an imaginary vowel value, if that's a term. Like you have to give an imaginary vowel or a sound, a consonant, to carry a vowel to allow the lam to be produced. So al-kitab, al-kitab. But if I put a letter that is already a vowel or like has a haraka basically, not a vowel, sorry, it has a haraka, so wa is waw with a fatha. So this fatha will lend its power to lam, and then the use of the alif is gone. So we say wal kitab. But without the alif, without the waw, I have to kind of create an imaginary vowel and say al kitab. So a difference between the alif hamza, if I see an alif like this and I see an alif like this, if you see this one in the beginning of words, it's usually hamza wasl. But if you see this hamza wasl as it kind of gets omitted when it's preceded by something. But if you see this alif is this alif hamza, it's called actually alif hamza, is pronounced whether it's preceded by something or not. يعني, if I say the name, a very common name, Ahmad, I don't say Wahmad, I say Wa Ahmad. I emphasize the glottal sound or the glottal stop sound. Wa Ahmad. Notice here I said Wal Kitab. I cancelled the alif. Here I don't. So this is one of the main differences. And of course, the letter alif on its own basically has no sound whatsoever. It's either as to resemble alif wasl, to kind of give an imaginary hamza sound at al tarif, or to be a seat for hamza in the beginning of a word. In the middle of a word, it's a long vowel indicator, but on its own, it doesn't have a sound. Is it clear, Maya? Of course, this question kind of involves a little bit of a more advanced topic, which is al-wasl. We're gonna explain it in detail later on, but don't worry. And we're going to also get to something called the sun letters and the moon letters. And I find them very interesting to learn because the theory behind them is very fun. Why is it sun? Why is it moon? And we'll get to them later. So here we're going back to reading. So here the hamza, the alif hamza has a fatha. So how would I pronounce it? Uh, 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 ana, ana. That means basically the pronoun I. The hamza here also has a fatha. So and the basically the ya has a sukun. So it's not a long vowel indicator. There's a fatha here. It cannot be e sound. It's the ya sound. So aina. It's where. It's a question or an interrogative like an interrogative particle. Basically, it's a particle you ask some where are things. Aina anta? Where are you? Um, Again, Hamza with fatha. Noon sakina with sukun, and the te has kasra. Anti, anti, anti. You. And this has to be singular and feminine. So I'm addressing one lady and I call her anti. You are or you. Anta, a, 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 anta. Anta is basically the same, but it's instead of singular, it's instead of feminine, it's masculine. It's the same one, but I'm gonna put masculine. Okay, now this is a different vowel on the hamza, and instead of a, like in ana, it's u, 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 ustad, u, ustad, ustadi, ustadi. Okay, hamza fatha, waw has a shadda with fatha, and the lam has dhamma. How would I pronounce this? A أول أول أو أو أول أول أول. Now maybe Maya, now you'd remember the al tarif, and that's exactly why I put Hamza here. It's wrong. This is a very wrong way to write it, but I put it just for the sake of not confusing you. There is an imaginary Hamza that we have to pronounce here. And I would write it, actually, I would write it with gray to just note that it's imaginary. But it's pronounced, but never written. But here I wrote it just to sake of clarifying it. How would I pronounce this? A, 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 al, 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 kha, mi, su, al khamisu. If I put a wow fatha here, there's no need for this imaginary alif, the imaginary hamza. So I say wal khamisu, wal, wal khamisu. The wow kind of skipped the whole sound. Compare, if I remove this wow, I would pronounce it as al-khamis, al-khamisu. But if I put the wow, it's wal-khamis. Notice there's a skip of the sound. And this is why we call it hamzat wasl. Wasl is to connect. So it connects what's before to the lam. Anyways, the alif here has, don't be overwhelmed with this. This is going to be explained in more details with more like after we finish the hamza in future lessons, probably next weekend, inshallah. Uh, this word is the hamza has fatha, so it's a, a, asasi, 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 fundamental or basic. Here the hamza is on the alif. Sorry, is the fatha on the hamza, and the kaf is sakin, has sukun. The mim is has kasra, and the lam has sukun. So it's أكمل أكمل أكمل. Continue. This is an order. This is basically what we call an imperative. It's like a command. أكمل. Continue. This one is Hamza with Dhamma, and the meme has Dhamma and Shadda. Sorry, Shadda Tanween Dhamma. So it's U, Ummun, Ummun. And I think this is the last one. No, one before last. So Hamza with Fatha. Jim has Sukun. Then Noon has Fatha. And the Be has nothing, but there's a Ya. So it's a long E sound. Ajnabi. Ajnabi. Foreign. And this one is very common. It's very easy to pronounce. It's the Hamza Fatha. The Meme has Sukun. The Re has nothing, but it has Kasra because I know by the Ya. The Kaf has nothing, but there's an Alif, final Alif, and I would pronounce it as Amrika. Amrika. Anyways, let's continue with the looking at the Hamza. Here, we're saying that sometimes it's written over under certain letters called seats or either standalone. In this lesson, we will discuss writing the Hamza at the first letter of the word, and in the following lesson, we will look at the other parts of the word. Okay, at the beginning of a word, the Hamza always written with on an Alif, of course, as its seat. If the following vowel is Kasra, then the Hamza is written under, like this. So if it's Dhamma or Fatha, I can put the Dhamma and I can put the Fatha. But if it's Kasra, it just goes under. So it becomes I, 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 I. It's not I, it's I, I. At the beginning of a word, Hamza is always written, we said that. So Hamza is written like under, like this. Otherwise, Hamza is written over its seat like the and the U. So, anyone who feels like reading from the last remaining champions of our class? Maya, yes. Maya and Asma. Maya will take row A, and Asma then will take row B. يس مايا اتفضلي. أنا ممتاز. أنت. مهم. أمسي. أخ. مهم. ممتاز جدا يا إيمان. Thank you very much. أسماء تفضلي. مهم. لو سمحتي row B please. أين ممتاز. أستاذ. مرة أخرى again please. أسلم. أسلي. The شدة is on is a كسرة there's a كسرة on the شدة. أسلم. perfect. أخت ممتاز. ممتاز. Very good. Thank you very much أسماء. Okay, anyone wants to take Rosie? Okay, no one then. Okay, I'll take it. So the Hamza has a dhamma. So the re is has sukun, the sin has a kasra, and the lam has a dhamma. It's ur u ur silu ur si lu ursilu ursilu ursilu. I send. This one also the Hamza has a dhamma, the dal has a kasra, and the re has a kasra. Sorry, the dal has a sukun, and the re has a kasra, and the kaf has a dhamma. So it's udriku, udriku, udriku. And the very sharp, noticing people with sharp eyes, they would realize that they are the same vowels here and here, because it's a pattern. It's a verb conjugation. So it's basically you would put the same root, you would put the root in these vowels, and you would create a conjugation. Uh, this one, yes, this is where my font kind of messes up. It's basically Hamza, Kasra, but how would I pronounce this? So it's I, I, and there is Lam Sakin or Lam Sukun. So it's il, il, ilza, ilzam, ilzam. This is, I put an exclamation mark because this is an imperative, it's a command. Ilzam is stay next to or stay beside or continue doing something. Uh, this one is Hamza Dhamma. Dal has nothing, but there's a ya, so it's a long vowel kasra. And the re with dhamma, so it's udiru, udiru, udiru. Ha. Now this one here, it comes at the end of the sentence, the end of the word, but it's also on alif. So this is just to kind of show you how it would sound, not in the beginning of a word. So how would I pronounce this? Ba da ba da bada'a bada'a bada'a. It's basically a hiccup. It's like bada'a bada'a. He started, by the way. So anyone wants to try D? The row D? Like the thing is, like even if you don't read, I don't force anyone to read. You take it at your own pace. But I really hope that after the class you just dedicate 15 minutes to just read these tables to yourself. Even with mistakes, I don't mind. But later on you might find more courage to kind of say them out publicly between yourself or try to hear them more often. But if يعني for nothing, it could be just for at least to train your organs of speech to the sound or try to attempt to make the sound. And with practice you will be more fluent, or you'd have more ability to produce whatever sound you want. So row D, I think is I'll take it. So it's, as we said, Hamza with fatha, Dal with fatha, and the Ba has tanween. So it's a. Oh, Asma. Okay. Yes, Asma. Come here. Let's do this. Okay. So the first one. أدب ممتاز. أخبار ممتاز. Okay, this is also, yeah, my font is kind of bad, but hey. إن شدة on the noon فتحة ممتاز. أسيرة. أكلم ممتاز ممتاز. Thank you very much, Basma. Very good. أكلم. Oh wait, شدة. I forgot to put a شدة. Sorry. Yeah, this is very sloppy of me. أكلم. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for catching that. Luna, yes. Do you have a question? I think we. Okay, let's see. Yes, Luna. Do you want to read something? You can pick any row and read it if you want again. Uh, I can't hear you. Oh, oh shit. Oh, oh, oops, 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 oops. Li. Yes, yes. أكلم. It should be written like this, the shadda under, but thank you for catching that. Yeah. I The hamza at the end of the word, the hamza at the end of the word and the middle of the word have their own set of convention, their own set of rules to be written, on which seat they are written. You have two options usually, but this is as far as I'm concerned, this the hamza, this part of the class is done. We've read everything, and you know that the only thing remaining is the full versus pausal forms, which I would just keep for the next lesson because we already pushed 1 hour and a half. But this is just to clarify more about the hamza. The hamza usually has three seats. Has the alif, has the waw, and the ya, and it could happen like this this. It could be on the waw, and it could be on the ya as at the end of the word, or could be in the middle of the word as on a seat. Like let's say here, and this is hamza, and then like whatever. Now, these shapes or variations are determined by usually the vowel of either the hamza itself or what's after it. And it has a few weird conventions because we'll get to them next lesson, don't worry. But what is the purpose of all this? Why does it have seats? Why can't I just write it on the line and that's it, or write it all on alif? Again, I go back to telling you that Arabic did not have any sort of vowels back in the day, like no dhamma, no shadda. And the way of writing the alif can actually give you a clue on either the haraka of the hamza or the haraka of the letter before it. So this is why we have weird convention, because basically these are clues to how to read unvoweled Arabic text, and they will still remain to help you now reading them. Once you understand the rules, you can tell like, oh, this hamza is on a waw. So either the hamza has a waw on it, it's like u, or the letter before it has a dhamma. Like if I remove this, uh-huh. Hmm. Oh yes, 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 yes. That's a good question. The seat is basically just a seat. It has no sound. That's it. No, 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 no. What you're pronouncing is the Hamza, but those seats are just imaginary. But the clue is that they give you a clue on the vowel of the Hamza itself. Is it clear now? Yes, this is what we call alif maqsura. Alif maqsura is alif that comes at the end of a word. It has its own rules, and it's kind of really advanced to explain it, like why some words kind of have alif maqsura and alif adiyya, or alif like normal alif and alif maqsura. The Yeah, I can of course I can explain that in the Arabic beginner, or yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, you're more welcome, more than welcome. Anyways, the last part of the class I feel is going to add a little bit too much on you guys. But before I jump, is there any questions about Hamza? Like, never mind the last part that I spoke with Luna about, the seats and whatnot. We will get to them next class with more detail, and I will kind of build it up for you in a more systemic way, not as rushed like this. Any question about Hamza? Hamza in the beginning of a word is very easy. It usually assumes the alif as a seat, but next, inshallah, tomorrow we're going to have scenarios where it assumes different seats, the waw or ya. So, I will stop here today, and tomorrow just remind me to continue with the instead of jumping right away to lesson number 6, we just jump and discuss what is the full versus pausal forms in Arabic. It's a very easy concept, but I don't want to push more on you so you don't lose interest. Um, so, this concludes our the lesson of today. But if you have any questions about anything that we went through, you can ask it now. And in a bit, I will also put the PDF of today's lesson, so you can have a reference material. And in like 4 or 5 hours, depending on how good my internet is, the recording of the video will be up on YouTube, and the link will be in the lessons forum. Until then, I would wish you a good day, and inshallah, I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, I want you to all to be safe, to at least try to practice reading these words, these letters, try to do the tricks that I kind of uh, thought about or researched how to kind of help produce, especially the sound qaf. Um, and if you have any questions, you can always shoot me a message, or not a message, you can shoot me a tag